Hey everyone, these are my top 35 favorite fragrances of all time as of recording this. This will be going live on my 35th birthday, so I thought it would be fun to do, top 35 for that. These are not in any order. I will definitely at some point do like my top 5 or something like that in order, but these are just my top 35 favorite. It was pretty hard to get it down to this actually. It was fairly easy to get it down to like top 50, but to top 35 was really kind of like, what's gonna make it or not, but so overly serious for the top 35 fragrances list. But yeah, just gonna jump in and kind of go over why each one is. One, Philosykos by Diptyque. I'm sure many of you have smelled this. Very kind of popular, niche fragrance. It smells like creamy fig and woods. And this was one of the first niche fragrances that I smelled where it was like, oh my god, like, wow, that is unique, that's so good, like, I just couldn't, it's like ethereal, it's evocative, it just makes me feel like I'm on a tropical island or something. It doesn't work with my skin, so it's not full bottle worthy for me, but I keep a little decant of it just so I can smell it, and I love it. Next up, Scents of Wood, Hinoki and Hinoki. Hinoki I really like as, kind of a scent in general. It's like kind of like a calming woods with sort of a lemony nuance to it. And I've smelled a lot of Hinoki scents. They can be hit or miss for me. Sometimes I don't always like the way it's done in a wearable fragrance. This one is the best kind of like pure Hinoki focused one that I've ever smelled. Like rich, deep, woodsy, but super fresh at the same time. And I love that. I just think it smells like so invigorating, yet meditative too, and just the all-around full picture. Next, Black Eau de Toilette by Comme des Garcons. This is really like smoky, spicy, like then there's vetiver and licorice. I don't normally like licorice, but it works here to me. It's definitely considered very intense by a lot of people. To me, it's actually not that intense as long as you don't overspray. Like I could even just do one spray of this and I can smell it pretty heavily for a while. When I first tried it, I thought like, oh, it doesn't have that much longevity protection, but the more I wore it, it was like, okay, well, no, whoa, it really does. So yeah, that one is definitely cold weather scent only for me, and it's not something I would wear all the time, but I really do like it when I do for just this burst of like smoky spice, intense woods, vetiver, all that. Next up, Polo Red Intense by Ralph Lauren. This was the first fragrance that I can remember where I really saw firsthand how important skin chemistry is. I smelled it on, a test strip, and I was like, oh, this is so good. I already thought Polo Red is, definitely one of my favorite masculine designers, but it wasn't quite there for me of like what I'd want to wear. This when I smelled it, and I was like, yes, like I remember just being so excited. I was probably like doing like a touchdown dance, like, yeah, like I just thought it smelled so like sexy in a way, and I wanted to smell like the smell that I was getting from this. But I tried it on my skin, and it was like, what? Like it was just a completely different fragrance basically. And I always encourage testing on test strips first, at least for my purposes, because skin can change stuff so dramatically that I don't think it's as good for review purposes to just base it on how it works with your skin. But yeah, for me, love that one in the test strip. It's like kind of, I think, cranberry coffee amber type of vibe, and it just is the perfect version. There's so many Polo Red flankers in that one. I just love it. I wish that it worked on my skin. But yeah, to me, that one smells like a very like sexy modern masculine scent. Not hyper masculine or anything, but leans masculine. Next up, the House of Oud, Live in Colors. This has basically like citrus, ginger, and hinoki, essentially. Very like sweet and fresh type of citrus. Like it's not like this is just hinoki dominated, but it really works so well to bring out the nuance of the kind of citrusy side that hinoki often has. And I love it. I find it really refreshing. And even though a lot of people would consider that a warm weather only scent, for me it actually works well in cold weather too, because it does have like some sweetness to the style that the citrus is done in. Beautiful bottle too. Next up, Zoologist Tyrannosaurus Rex. This is one, as I always say, I rarely wear this, but I like to take off the cap and smell it. It's so fiery. It smells like just like, burning like plants and forest and trash even, and just weird stuff, and like very, very like huge cloud, major longevity and projection. Just too pungent, I think, to wear in public, but I just really enjoy it. So especially like during winter, or if I'm going to be getting in the shower soon or something, I'll put it on, or I just like to like smell it, and it just gives me like fire in the jungle type of vibes, I guess. Next up, Creed Aventus, the 10th anniversary edition. Such an annoying fraghead thing to have like, no, it has to be this edition type of thing. But so as for the original Aventus, I think I like the opening. I don't really care for the dry down that much. I don't dislike it. It's just, to me, not at all something that I would consider one of the best fragrances of all time, though I do really like the opening. But this one has The opening is similar but has less pineapple, and to me, I don't really love pineapple in wearable fragrance. I think it can get a little bit too syrupy sweet for my taste sometimes. This one doesn't have that vibe, and the dry down isn't as earthy. So for me, this is like, yes, this is like what I had hoped, Aventus itself would be like. And again, I do like Aventus. I think it's really good. But this specific 10th anniversary edition, which there's places that still sell sample and decants, so you can totally check it out. I think it's probably really hard to find a bottle, but I do really love that. It doesn't quite work with my skin, so it's not something that I would, get a bottle of, but I think it's great. Next up, Le Jardin Retrouve Cuir de Russie. This is one where I love the opening so much, and I hate the dry down. So, yeah, I hate the dry down of this so much that I won't even, otherwise it might actually be full of bottle worthy for me, and just like to wear it, again, before getting in the shower, or something where I just like really want to smell it. And I do keep a decant of it for that purpose. But in terms of, it's this like powdery leather violet with some citrus and aldehydes in the opening, and I got a free sample of it when I ordered from somewhere, and I was like, this looks gross, like I'm not gonna like this, I hate violet and some of the other stuff in it. And then I tried it, and it was like mind blown, like, oh my god, that is beautiful. But then once that patchouli vibe really strongly comes in by the dry down, actually not even by the dry down, pretty quickly, probably within 10 minutes tops it comes in for me, then it's just like really kind of nauseating to me. But I would still list it just based on that opening in my favorite fragrances ever. Next, Comme des Garcons, the self-titled 2011. This has notes of like tape and glue, along with some other stuff, and then like some leather and saffron and some lilac, I think. And basically it just smells nostalgic to me, like art projects, but yet still kind of wearable in a way too. So I like that vibe of how interesting it is, and nostalgic, but still wearable. Next up, Versace Eros, the EDT version. This was one of the first full bottle worthy fragrances that, for me, my taste, that I encountered when I was getting more into fragrance. And at the time I was like, oh no, this is so embarrassing. I like a Versace, like that's so bougie, like that's gonna be awkward if someone's like, what are you wearing? It's like, Versace. Now I'm like, okay, now that I'm more into fragrance, I see that designers are not at all considered the bougie world of fragrance. And now I'm like, this is $600. Yeah, I mean, fairly priced for what it is. But it's like vanilla mint, basically, sort of vibe with tonka, and then a little bit of like an oak moss in a modern way type of thing. And a lot of people will call frat boy scent clubbing, but to me that gets more compliments than pretty much almost anything I wear, and I do actually still really, really like it. Next up, Louis Vuitton Sur La Route. This is one of, if I was doing this in order, this would be really, really high up. It's kind of like sort of grassy, leather, citrus. Not even all of those notes are referenced in it, but that's what most people get out of it, including me. And then I guess there's like some warm spice nutmeg. I never thought about it like that, but that's one of the only few notes that Louis Vuitton actually mentions in it. But yeah, to me it's like very grassy leather, but really bright and citrus at the same time. And yeah, I love that. I probably wear that more than almost anything, more so in like warm weather. Next up, Neroli Extrait by Roja. This doesn't work with my skin, so it's not full bottle worthy for me, and it's absurdly expensive and discontinued. So I guess good thing about that. But this is just one of those ones where it was like, wow, just like beautiful is the only way I can describe it. You have to like Neroli. If you don't like, that kind of Neroli or like really light citrusy vibe, you're not going to like it. But to me, this is one of the best Neroli scents that I've ever smelled, and it's just like so uplifting. It just feels like a spotlight is just on you of, I don't know, warm freshness, and not warm as in the fragrance itself being warm, but just like glowing light of just, that's what I get from it. I love it. Next up, Lacoste Rouge. I wore this for at least 8 years, I think, before getting into fragrance, if not more. And even from very early on when I went and was trying to like, I want to find a new, fragrance or whatever, I didn't like almost anything that I tried back then. I still don't love most things I try, but that was the one where I was like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I love that. And my wife was really into it too. So yeah, that was the only thing I wore for many, many years, and it'll always be fun to me. I feel like now that I've smelled so many other things, it smells a little bit cheaper to me, but I also think my bottle might have turned a little bit of that, so I really just do need to get a new one. But I don't like the dry down of that one, and I didn't know that dry down was like a thing when I wore it, so I kind of would always be like, why it doesn't smell as good later? What is that about? But the opening is like mango, ginger, and pepper, and I love the combination of like the warm spice and the citrus, and just like, yeah, like so good. Next up, Britney Spears' Sunset Fantasy. Now, this isn't one that I personally would wear. It's just a bit too feminine leaning for my personal taste, but it's one of those I would list because it just smells so good to me. Like, this one, you can definitely, if you've tried the original Fantasy, this has that same kind of DNA in it and actually smells somewhat similar, but I think it's even better. It's like sweet, fruity, milky, creamy, and smells very much higher quality than however cheap price point it's at. Just really alluring and captivating. I find it kind of like sexy and also just like that smells good at the same time. Kind of just like with food or something where it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be fancy or whatever. If it just tastes good or whatever, then you're just drawn to it. It's just like, ooh, I want that. Like when I smell that, it's just like, like, yes, I just enjoy that smell. Next up, quite far off the track from that one, but Ahuizotl by PRIN. This is like smoky, really dark, but yet kind of fresh, earthy, coniferous, and badass, and yet kind of almost contemplative at the same time. People have described it, I've seen, as being like a sorcerer's potion. I could totally see that. Then it dries down to this really like nice incense that's kind of mystical but energetic at the same time, just really stunning from start to finish. I think that one might be a UK exclusive. I had to order a sample from, I think, Bloom Perfumery in the UK or something to get it. Fortunately, it wasn't quite full bottle worthy for me because it didn't work with my skin, because very pricey. That one's like hundreds of dollars just for like a small 30 milliliter bottle, but just amazing. Next, Roja Elysium, very popular masculine leaning fragrance within niche. A lot of Roja sometimes gets hate for this or that, or, you know, they're overpriced this, that. But to me, I usually do feel that they're very high quality, and I like to try different stuff from them. I'm not a Roja stan, but this one, and I guess Neroli, as I mentioned earlier, is definitely a favorite for me. This is something that I would wear to like anything from sort of when I just want to say it was like, it could even be like a date night thing. I've worn that often out with my wife. Or if I was going to wear something in a professional situation, or like I wore it to a friend's wedding and things like that. Like it's like that where it just kind of like gives me this like nice classy vibe, but not at all stuffy in a way, and it still has a lot of freshness to it. Definitely a warm weather scent. Next, Chetyre by Parfum Prissana, also by perfumer PRIN Onthamara, as with anything under the PRIN line. This is like really apocalyptic, smoky, kind of leathery, I think, too. Really just over the top, fiery, smoky scent, and I love that. It's not full bottle worthy for me because it's just a little bit too kind of close to certain things I already have that serve that purpose for me, but I absolutely love it, and it does belong to me in my top 35. And next up, Le Lion by Chanel. I was shocked to find out actually I think this came out within the last 5 years or something because it smells so vintage, but this is like powerful, like really like resinous amber with like this scorched sort of vibe to it. Not fiery smoky, but I think it actually might have patchouli, which I normally don't like. But this is one where I would only spray a tiny little bit before, because at least for me it's like really, really strong and could be a bit overwhelming, and it can get pungent, I think, to some people and stuff. But there's something that I just find about it just captivating, really well done, of this like slinking sort of labdanum style amber vibe. And next up, 4711 Cologne, from high-end Chanel to this is probably one of the world's cheapest fragrances, and I love it. I was always looking like, okay, I want my sort of like perfect Neroli scent that actually works, because my skin just doesn't do well with Neroli often, which is a shame because it's one of my favorite notes. But this is like one of those classic, and this is the world's first cologne. I think it came out in the 1700s in Cologne, Germany, and it has citrus, like rosemary, lavender type of stuff, like classic vibe like that. The longevity is about 15 minutes, and it has like no projection, but I love it for like a hot day. It's so cheap, and just you can even keep them in the fridge, and just like to get that like burst of just little refreshment. And then it's kind of nice to have one like that too, because then I can get that, and then it's not going to last that long, so okay, I'll just be able to wear something else again soon. But really love that one for its refreshing qualities. Next, Zoologist Cow. This smells, a lot of people say like just green apple shampoo or something, so some people that don't get what I do out of it, but for me it's like this really relaxing, like being in a pasture drinking a milky smoothie type of vibe or something like that. And I just love the kind of relaxing vibe to it. I wear that if it's like warm out and I just want to feel like laid back and relaxed, and I like that. Not relaxed nighttime style, but just like during the day still, and have some energy. Next, Tom Yum by Parfum Prissana, based on the kind of Thai soup, This is like a classic eau de cologne in terms of like what I mentioned about 4711 cologne, but it's unique. It has like really kind of like sharp green aromatics in it and like really sharp citrus and stuff like that and intense, but there's something I just find so invigorating about it, and I love that I could get that like classic eau de cologne vibe but have it be more unique and cool like that. Next up, Daisy by Marc Jacobs. Not one I would wear myself, but this is what my wife wears, and so the only thing she wears. So this and also Daisy Oso Fresh Edition, which they smell pretty similar. I think I like the Oso Fresh one. That has a little bit of like a sexier vibe, but I love them both just because it's like, it reminds me of her. And a lot of people wear that scent. Like, it's considered basic, but I've never been around anybody else wearing it, so it just reminds me of her. So I love smelling that and the association. Next up, Nefer by Parfum Prissana. It smells like fancy and luxurious, but not stuffy or dated. And it's just aromatic, slightly sweet and fresh, incense and warm spice done in the best way, where it's also kind of like cozy and it's also sexy at the same time. Really nice fall and winter scent. Not full bottle worthy to me because it's like there's other stuff that kind of doesn't quite work well with my skin, and there's other stuff I have that sort of works for those purposes for me, but I really, really love it. Next, another Parfum Prissana, Ayutthaya. Made like strong incense with this really intriguing gunpowder vibe to it, spice, woods, vetiver, and also some green and floral freshness. It almost, I said this before, I think it almost smells to me like a modern version of a classic Chanel fragrance, and I just find it so addictive. Really makes me feel just like confident to wear. It didn't quite, again, work with my skin, a common theme of some of my favorites, or not favorites too, but so it's not full bottle worthy for me, but I just find it stunning and I love to smell it. There's also like this cooling smokiness to it that's so good. Next up, this would also be for sure one of my favorite fragrances of all time, Margiela by the Fireplace. Very popular, obviously, but I love it. On my skin, it goes really smoky, so that's a case where my skin makes it better than what I would think of it otherwise. For some people, they get more marshmallowiness out of it, but to me, it literally smells like just like real like fiery smoke with like a more minor marshmallowy vanilla vibe, and I love the intensity of it, especially the opening, and then that it also kind of has like a cozier dry down, and it just reminds me of like holidays and winter season, and I really, really love it. Next up, Zoologist Cockatiel. This is like champagne, raspberry, green bite of rhubarb, and powderiness, and I wouldn't have thought most of those things would appeal to me, but there's something that's just so like uplifting and like intriguing and addictive about this that I really, really like it. And I like to try anything by Zoologist, but it's not always necessarily something I want to wear. This one, some people think it's very challenging because of how sharp the rhubarb is, and I think maybe some patchouli, but there's something that I just really, really love about it. And then it has a more like sweet vanilla dry down, so you get the kind of fun uniqueness of that in the opening, effervescence from the sort of champagne vibe, but then it also is totally wearable at the same time. Next, Onthamara by PRIN. This smells like, I think I've compared it before to a bubbling cauldron in the middle of a dark forest with like wisps of smoke swirling around, just all kinds of things that are on fire in the potion mix, and just, enveloped by smoke, and also kind of like meditative and spiritual at the same time. It's just the type of thing where I smell it and it just almost leaves me speechless. It's just like, wow, that is intense and evocative. Again, not something that I have a full bottle of because I have other things that, I have other potions in the middle of the forest scents, don't you? No, but like, there's certain PRIN ones that I like to have, and this, maybe it didn't work with my skin. There was some reason that it wasn't quite full bottle for me, but I really, really love it. Next, TSVGA Vicki Lin. Another one, I would never, ever wear this in public or honestly even at home because it is so intense. It smells straight up like a forest on fire, and I love that. But this is the most intense fragrance of any kind like that I've ever smelled. Even just like opening a tiny little thing of it or whatever without even applying anything is just like, oh my god, it's like explosive. But I just love that like forest fire scent. It's just too extreme here even for me to want to wear it, but I really, really love it. Next, the Paradigm by Apothecary Tepe. This shocked me because the notes are, I think, like Mysore sandalwood, jasmine, probably grandiflorum, I think, and then lily or something else like that. So I looked at that note. I had bought like a sample set from them or something, but I was thinking for sure I wasn't going to like this one, or at least not love it, because I don't like sandalwood, or so I thought. And then this is what I found out. Oh, I like Mysore sandalwood, because sandalwood apparently can smell very different depending on where it's from, like Australian versus like Mysore East Indian sandalwood, so it just smells like a completely different note to me. And there's something it smells like wheat, like bread almost to me or something. And the jasmine here is not, to me, it doesn't get indolic. Some people say it does. It doesn't even, I wouldn't have even recognized this as jasmine. Honestly, there's just, yeah, it smells kind of like fresh wheat or bread to me in a way. I don't know why, but I love it. Next, Chanel Allure Sport. Just this nice creamy orange with some kind of woods. I think there's like some C notes in there and maybe like a little bit of kick in the background too. And just like a chill scent for when, kind of like a dumb reach type of thing for me, yeah, where it's like, you're not really sure what to put on. It kind of can work in any weather for me. I just like reach for that and like, okay, yeah, and I feel good. I'm wearing something. I didn't have to think too much about it, and I really like the smell. Next, Fico di Amalfi by Acqua di Parma. This would also be on one of my top, really high up favorite scents of all time. It's like kind of creamy, but not Philosykos level creamy, sort of milky fig with some citrus, like strong grapefruit too in the opening, that then also has like some kind of, I think, not too woodsy, but like a little bit of that vibe and some jasmine and other stuff. But whenever I smell that, it's just like, yes, it just smells good to me. And I sent it to somebody I talked to in fragrance once, and they said it smells like a sweaty gym sock to them. And strong grapefruit can get like that to some people. I've heard that not infrequently about stuff with strong grapefruit. But to me, it's really more strong fig, but I guess the grapefruit comes out stronger to some people than others. But I just find it so addictive and good. Definitely warm weather scent only, but I absolutely love that. I get bad longevity around it, so it's not even something that I wear thinking like, oh, someone else is going to smell it on me. It's just purely for my own enjoyment and just makes me so happy. Next, Eshu by PRIN. I do not normally PRIN is an expert at doing this with notes I don't like and just turning them around, but this has like tobacco, hay, castorian, cognac, cumin, just things that, like, especially something like cumin, it's like I never like that normally, but it just smells intoxicating to me. Here, one of the best animalic fragrances I've ever smelled. Like, resin is spicy, intriguing, and smoky, almost gasoline-like edge. Not mass appealing, that is for sure, but it's just incredibly high quality, so well blended, and I love it. Another one where I don't have a bottle of it because there's just others. Well, I'll get to one shortly that is my favorite animalic PRIN one, which kind of serves that purpose for me, but really, really love it. Next up, Light Blue Love is Love Pour Homme edition by Dolce & Gabbana. So this does not smell like the other ones in the Light Blue series. Those are just okay to me, like they're fine, but as well as for the masculine ones. I think for the feminine ones, I haven't smelled all of the flankers. I definitely have for the masculine ones, and it's like, okay, that's nice or whatever, but it's not really my thing. This one smells like creamy vanilla with citrus and then like a little bit of like rosemary to balance it out. So it's very sweet. It's one of the few like really sweet fragrances that I really like. But I can't enjoy it as much anymore because ever since I smelled Secretion Magnifique by État Libre d'Orange, I developed somewhat of an aversion to certain types of musk or some kind of musk that now when I smell it just suddenly takes me back to how much I hate that fragrance, and I get a little bit of that type of musk here. But I still want to include it because I really do love it in general, and I hope I can come back to it someday. And yeah, that's pretty much a cheapie. I think you can probably get a bottle for like $40 now, but there's something about that like sweet ice cream vibe with the citrus that just really, yeah, I like it a lot. Next, On the Beach by Louis Vuitton. This is like a combination of like neroli and kind of like cypress and I think pink pepper type of vibe, and it's a type of beachy scent where it's not aquatic, it's not marine. It's more like the feeling you get from being at like a beachfront restaurant or something like that, just like that kind of vibe somehow, and that like sunny but fun, adventurous feel or something like that. But no like ocean notes, no seaweed, nothing like that, because those just aren't really my thing. But this one, yeah, I really, really like that a lot. And lastly, Veruec by PRIN. This is based on the concept of like a feral wolf or like a feral wolf's den. And it has, multiple kinds of like oud, like so many different animalics, like all this kind of stuff that normally would not be in something that I would wear. I really don't like oud most of the time. And even when I do, it's kind of like, okay, that's fine. Like it's not the bad kind of oud, but it's not usually something that I like outright love. But this one, it is intense as hell, and it's not something that I would wear lightly, or, it also isn't, it's a rare one where I do not like smelling off the bottle. It smells really gross in that sense, but once it like interacts with my skin, or even on a test strip, it's just like this smoky animalic that's so badass and sultry, And it just toes the line to me between like sexy badass and am I gonna smell like a sewer? So yeah, I had to send it to a couple people first, like, can I wear this in public or is that gonna be disgusting? But I really, really love that one, and that is kind of my go-to animalic as far as PRIN Lammros scents go. But yeah, these are my 35 favorites. Not saying these are the 35 best fragrances of all time. I would be putting very different things on the list than this if I was really trying to be objective about like through fragrance history, these 35 stand out or whatever. But for my favorites, yes, and I'm sure I will be updating this in a future video at some point. I don't do repeat videos. I'm never going to do a video where it's like a lot of things I see over the top 10 beast mode hype things, and it's like the same things that someone else said a million other times in a video. They did the exact same video, the same list. I don't do that. It's only going to be like if it's a new list. But when there's stuff to update, I'll do a new version of that list if that comes up. Like say, I mean, a bunch of these just came out this year, I think. So clearly stuff can get added or take different places. So I'm sure at some point, maybe I'll do this as an annual thing next year when I turn 36. It'll be top 36, and it might be a lot of different stuff on here. But as of right now, these are my favorites. I'm not going to link in the description, I don't think, where you can get a bottle or sample this time, because it would be a lot of work to kind of go through and find the sources for all of these, but you can just Google it, to find them. Pretty much almost all of them are fairly easy to find bottles or samples of. But yeah, if you have thoughts on any of these, I'd love to know, and thanks for watching. It's fun to talk about these because it's just like I love each one so much. But yeah.